Good morning and welcome to FormsViewer training. I'm Joanne and I'm a tester at Qdabra. Also here with me is Kirby and will be your temporary host for day one since Patrick won't be able to make it today. But we're hoping that he can join us tomorrow. He's really done a wonderful job delivering these classes for years. So we really have a big shoes to fill, but we'll do the best that we can. Also, before we begin the class, we'd like to thank you for being here. It is a stressful time, and we hope that you are safe from where you are. We want you to know that Qdabra has been a virtual company since 2003, and we have a very consistent team over the years. We continue with our dedication to our customers, and we're hoping that we can help you in some way during this crisis through classes like this. So again, welcome. This is a 4-day class and we'll run it in 2.5 hours each day. A brief introduction. I am Joanne Tandaan and I'm a software tester at Qdabra. I'm in the Philippines and it is currently around 10 in the evening my time. My favorite hobby is reading and right now I'm also cooking. I like preparing delicious meals for my family, and since we're in lockdown now in the Philippines, we've been using local herbs and plants from our backyard to cook. So just sharing some of the things that I do outside work. And also here is Kirby. Kirby, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Curvy Laborte, and I started working at Qdabra for 2 years now. This is my fifth FormsViewer training, and a little bit about me. I just got back from my maternity leave, and I guess my hobby right now is spending time with my newborn, doing some simple activities together to improve his brain's development. I'm not sure if that counts as a hobby, but yeah, that's what I'm usually doing every day. And yeah, I'm very happy to contribute to this training, and I can wait to share with you some cool stuff about FormsViewer.
Thanks, Kirby, and thanks for the great effort in doing these labs with me. I couldn't have done it without you. So our class goals is to help you retain your existing investment. We know that most of you have been using InfoPath for many years, and I'm sure that you have lots of forms created in InfoPath already that you want to continue using. And we have started developing this FormsViewer app since 2014. And we have plenty of customers using it in SharePoint Online or on-prem. And some of our clients are even using it without SharePoint, and they're using our standalone version of FormsViewer. So for those who don't have it installed yet, we can schedule a support call if you need assistance on installing FormsViewer. We'll make an assessment of your forms and we'll help you convert your forms to FormsViewer. And I just want to quickly show you a booklet that you can download from our site. So if you go to Qdabra's homepage, at the bottom of this page, you'll see this free PDF booklet that you can download. And this booklet basically describes the advantages and pros of FormsViewer. And this also has some nice illustrations that describes the steps on how you can migrate your existing forms to FormsViewer. So you can install the app, you can get it from your the SharePoint store itself, or if you're on-prem, you can get the build from our InfoPath dev site and we'll assist you on installing them. And we have several tools that I can call part of our toolbox, like the get user profile by name to convert the rules that are assuming the domain/username format. Then you can also use the revert UDCX tool to convert UDCX connections to regular data connections if you have those type of data connections in your forms. And we also have several template parts created, like the dynamic XTP template parts that can help you move your forms from test to production environment with minimal effort. So we have a lot of stuff that we can add in your form in order for them to be enabled in FormsViewer. And some of the features that are mentioned in this booklet are also going to be discussed throughout the training sessions. So just going back here in my slide. So we also have Q rules available in FormsViewer. And Q rules have so many commands that are built to bridge the gap between InfoPath and SharePoint. And some of you may have already used Q rules before. So in this class, we hope that the training content can help you see what's possible in FormsViewer. We always try to continue adding value to our customers' forms by extending and adding cool features like CSS styling, lots of XTP reusable sections. We provide them to our clients. And also this task pane XTP that we just presented in our last week's webinar, we're also including that pattern in this training class. It's probably going to be in day 4. Then we also provide step-by-step instructions. We worked very hard on these labs to make it easy for you to follow. If you're able to download the day 1 package that we sent out today, you can scan the day 1 labs and look into the lab folders so you can get familiar with the topics that we'll be discussing today. You can also watch the demos during the training, and if you prefer to run the labs later if you want, you can also do that. And then if you have any questions about them, feel free to send an email to support@qdabra.com. Okay, so like what we do in every FormsViewer training, would like to get to know you more. So if you can briefly introduce yourself using the questions in the slide. Like, for example, how many forms you've created, how long have you been using FormsViewer, and what type of FormsViewer you're using. Are you on FormsViewer Online, on-prem, or standalone? Questions like this. I'd really appreciate if you can share them to the class. So let's just quickly go around the table, and I'll go from top to bottom of the participants in Zoom. And let's see. Our class is full. We have actually 10 participants. And I can see that Logan Phillips is first in the list. Do you mind unmuting yourself and be the first to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, yeah, so this is kind of like a last minute join for me. Patrick kind of briefly talked about, what we'd be going over today and decided I'd join. So, yeah, I'm Logan Phillips. Don't really know much about creating forms or anything. How long I've been using FormsViewer, not at all really. Yeah, it's kind of like a last minute thing. So hoping to learn what I can and, communicate back to my team on, some stuff that we can do with our current form and, go from there.
Good to hear that, Logan. Well, the content of day 1 is designed for basic scenarios. So we have the sample form, very basic form that you can use for practice purpose. Yeah, so glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. All right, so next in the list is Caroline. Hello, Caroline.
Good morning. My name's Caroline Veman. I am in Missouri. I've had FormsViewer installed for a couple of years. I've got dozens and dozens of InfoPath forms, but I don't have any FormsViewer forms that we're using in production yet. I keep getting pulled away on other projects. So my purpose for attending, I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've attended your class, and I'm hoping to just get a refresher and to see some of your new features.
Good to know. Yeah, I remember you also joined the August class. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for joining again. So, in this class, I think it's a refresher also. You can see our new task pane technique. Maybe you can use that to one of your new forms that you're planning to build. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that. So, um, next one in the list is, I'm not sure what the name, what the name is, but it's,
Okay.
can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, that's probably D. Potoff.
Ipatov, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Potoff is my last name, Donald, first name.
Oh, Donald, welcome.
Yeah, sorry, I just took the default of whatever came up. Anyway, Donald Potoff, I'm in Houston. It's taken us about a year and a half actually to get FormsViewer loaded. We had lots and lots and lots of problems. So it's finally loaded, but I've probably done about 50 InfoPath forms. Only about 15 are still in work, but I keep getting pulled off, just like Caroline, on projects that I can't even start to convert some of the forms that we do have over into InfoPath. So my purpose for taking this class is just basically to keep familiar with what's capable, and as soon as my current project is over, then I'll be able to start converting them over and taking advantages of some of the new features. I don't have the latest version installed, so I'm pretty much going to be an observer, but we'll see how this goes. I just need to basically keep this to the forefront of my mind as far as what's available.
All right, thanks, Donald. If you don't have the latest version, if you're on SharePoint Online, you can get the latest version from the SharePoint store.
Ours is on-prem.
On-prem. If on-prem, we also have the latest available in our InfoPath dev site, and we can direct you to the link where you can download that. And we can also schedule a support call to assist you to
Yeah, that's probably what I'll have to do. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So next is, not sure if next is in the list is Emma.
Oh, yep.
Hello,
That's me.
Emma.
Yep. Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emma Ferry. I'm in Western Massachusetts. I work for Greylock Federal Credit Union, and we're very, very new to SharePoint 2019 and FormsViewer. I am actually a developer on the SharePoint team, so I haven't created any forms, and I haven't really touched FormsViewer at all, but I'm kind of the guinea pig for the class, I guess you could say. So I'm going to be coming in and I'm going to be absorbing everything and hopefully bringing it back to the team so that we can make the most of it. And we're on-prem FormsViewer SharePoint 2019. So.
Oh, good to know. So well, I guess you'll enjoy the class. And I'm no developer myself. I'm just a tester, but I started using InfoPath, well, 10 years ago, and I've been developing InfoPath forms since then. And FormsViewer is a relief to us. It's just very easy to use now. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see it since I haven't used InfoPath. So you guys will be my first forms experience.
Good to know. You're in the right place.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So next is Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hi, good morning. My name's Joe Lavia. I'm in Norristown, Pennsylvania. We've been using FormsViewer now for a couple of years, and we have probably a dozen or so forms that we're using in production. We are using FormsViewer online with SharePoint Online and Office 365. And I'm just hoping to get a better understanding of the FormsViewer product and a good handle on the new features.
Great to have you here, Joe. I've worked on some of your forms before, if you remember. And we also been reusing the task pane technique now, and we did a webinar of that last week. Yeah, so glad to have you here. Next is Sam. Hello.
Hello, this is Shabazz
Hello.
Munshi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, this is Shabazz Munshi. I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia. And
Hello.
I could, hello,
Mm.
my name is Shabazz Munshi. I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia. And I created about 20 production info platforms. And I'm trying to see how you can convert those info pads into FormsViewer right now.
Oh, good to know that if you um, have a lot of FormsViewer in production, you can add a lot
Mm-hmm.
of features to your forms, make your forms richer with our XTPs, and yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to see what FormsViewer is all about.
Mhm. Welcome to the class.
Thank you.
Mm. Um, okay, next is just a number. Can you please unmute?
Are you asking about Kathy?
Is it Kathy? Okay, please go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, I work in Beaumont, Texas for Spinal Shop Center, and we are just moving to Office 365, and we have SharePoint 2013, a lot of info platforms that Hillary spent a lot of time with us with. We just want to learn about FormsViewer.
Mm. Oh, welcome to the class, Kathy. I hope everything is good with the telemedicine forms that we sent you before.
Hopefully, hopefully we'll have that deployed soon.
Yeah.
We've been trying to move towards telemedicine for our entire hospital, so we've been sidetracked a little bit.
Okay, good to have you here. And the other two are just numbers. So can you please introduce yourself? I'm not sure who they are. 184-791 36612. Mm,
I don't think they've got audio.
yeah, they don't have audio. And the last name, oh, the last person is B. Is this Bob Harford? Oh, I'm sorry, but we can't hear you. It doesn't appear that you have audio in Zoom. Okay, so anyway, thanks for introducing yourself. We're really glad to have you participate here in the class. So in the next slides, Kirby will add a few more details to FormsViewer. Kirby?
Okay, so you might ask why FormsViewer? As you may already know, Microsoft is going to discontinue the support for InfoPath in 2026. And FormsViewer is built because we want to protect the value of your InfoPath investment and to give you this path forward. And for you to not worry about this huge number of conversions that you need to do if you're going to use a new technology and just continue what you've got. FormsViewer also has the lowest cost out there for InfoPath migration. And aside from that, FormsViewer offers a way to extend your forms functionalities, like it supports mobile view with CSS or cascading style sheets. You can also integrate it with any JSON or REST web services. And I'll show you the other features that it offers in the next slide. And lastly, we're here to serve you. It's our commitment to provide you with continued support and build accelerators and tools to help you with your business processes. So here are some of the cool features that FormsViewer offers. You can submit your forms repeating data to a SharePoint list. You can also generate PDF copies of your form, upload file attachments to a document library, and replace it with a link in the form. You can also use CSS to beautify your form and make it mobile friendly. And you can also create form links for users to open externally and approve. So this is for form users that don't have the access to SharePoint and who needs to get access to your forms. And in the next slide, you can also create pop-up overlays. So these are the pop-ups that are displayed on top of a current form. You can also create dashboards, and you can also integrate FormsViewer with third-party technologies like Twilio or Authy, which is a two-factor authentication app which provides security to your form. And lastly, you can detect and extract text from images, since FormsViewer allows integration with Google's OCR, or optical character recognition. Next slide, please. So for this training, we're going to show you how to enable FormsViewer in SharePoint Modern UI page using our FormsViewer extensions app. And with this app, you can open FormsViewer in your form library. We're also going to demo the QRows commands behind the cool features like adding field validations, inserting or deleting rows in a repeating table, generating PDF, and much more. We're also going to demo one way to secure your forms, and that's using the Authy XCP that we have prepared for you. And we have lots of template parts or XCPs that we'll be providing you in this training, like the Dynamic Data Connections XCP, Auto Logout XCP, and Authy XCP. We're also going to show you how to configure a dashboard and add some features to it, like sorting and filtering data. And we're also going to show you a way on how to add a task pane in the dashboard for some help text and instructions. So that's for the summary. Joanne?
Thanks, Kirby, for those inputs. So for training requirements, we're assuming that you have the FormsViewer app installed and running in your site. You also need to be a site collection admin in order to upload templates and manage templates in FormsViewer. So you might want to check if you have that permission in the site where you're planning to use for this training. So you also need a headset, or you can also connect by a phone during the training. So to begin our day one course's basic scenarios, we have provided a sample form. It's an expense report form that already has layout and data source. It also already has a form logic XML to help you centralize your rules. And aside from the expense report form, Lab 1 also contains the STP files for the form libraries and lists, so you don't have to recreate them. You'll learn how to make data connections of this expense report form dynamic, which means that you can take the form that connects to our site, inject it with our dynamic data connection XTP, and upload the form to your site. When it recognizes the site where it's in, it will convert the data connection to point to your site and query the library and lists that you've uploaded as STP. And I'm going to show you that in my demo in a moment. We'll also discuss how to query user profiles. In general, forms are designed to query the user who's filling it out, and by using the get user profile by name command, it will be just easy to add the current user or manager to your forms. Then at the end, we'll also demo how you can add validation to your forms and highlight the required fields. So I'll be doing labs 1 and 2, which covers the deployment of expense report form and adding the dynamic data connections XTP, which is using the change connection URL command. Then after that demo, we're going to have a 10-minute break. Then we'll be back and Kirby will demo labs 3 and 4 to show you how to get the user profiles and add the validation XTP. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with lab 1, which is the expense report form deployment. So if you were able to download the lab files that we just sent out today, you can open the lab 1 folder and you'll see that we have included the STP here. So these are just basically the templates for the expense report library and expense reports and list items. The other two are SharePoint lists, and the expense report form is going to submit on this library and lists. So let me just open the expense report form so you'll see how it looks in InfoPath Designer. Then open this expense report deployment guide. So this is just basically saying that we provided the STP files, the 3 STPs and the XSN. And then to start off, we need to create the library and lists using the template files. You need to go to the root of your site and go to list templates and upload those STPs to your site, and when they're uploaded as STP, they're going to be available as libraries and lists, and you can add them to any site as an app. So I'll show you how to do that. So this is a blank subsite, training subsite that I just created for demo. So I'll click View and select App. So first, I want to install FormsViewer. So just click on the app if it's already available in your tenant site, whether via the SharePoint store or installing it using the on-prem build. It's going to be available as an app to your site. Looks like I'm seeing double because I've used this site for testing earlier. So while waiting for FormsViewer to install, I'm going to search for the expense report library. And as you can see, it's already added as an STP to my site. So here we advise on using the same name, expense report library. And then we're going to add the other two lists. Okay, use the name as is. And there's one more. Okay. And now our FormsViewer is installed. So let's click on it. Go to Manage Templates. And here we're going to upload the expense report form.xsn in the Lab 1 folder. So just drag it. And I'm going to call it Lab 1. And I'm going to add it to a group called FB Training Day 1. So we can organize our form. And click Upload. Okay, let's try to open.
Are we supposed to be following along and doing the setup at the same time that you're doing yours?
No, you can actually watch the demo first, and if you have time later, then you can follow the labs if you prefer that. If you can also do the steps now, then you can also do that. So I'll just open the expense report form, and I just click the Open Form button here. So I scroll down on this document file. We just completed this part up to here. So we dragged the expense report form and uploaded it in FormsViewer. So the next part is to configure the FormsViewer extensions add-on. Because most users will not be accessing the forms via the open form buttons here. Most of your users may be going to the expense report library and opening the forms from there. So we need to let this expense report library to open the forms in FormsViewer. So we have a tool for that to allow you to open your documents in FormsViewer. So I'll create a new site page. In the FormsViewer Training Day 1 folder, you'll see this FormsViewer extensions folder. And this is what we're going to use to open the forms in the form library. So they open in FormsViewer. You just need to follow the document here, the instructions on how to upload the package to the SharePoint app catalog. And once you uploaded it there, just check the solution, make this solution available to all sites in the organization, and it will be available in to every site in your tenant. So I just created a site page, and I'm gonna name it config. And I'm going to click this plus button to allow me to add the FormsViewer extensions config web part. So this is the one that we need. So like I mentioned, if it's already available and uploaded in your SharePoint app catalog, you will be able to add it as a web part to your sites. So I'll click this pencil button to edit the web part, and I'll go to FormsViewer, click the FormsViewer link to go to the main page and copy the URL, paste it here, and publish. Okay, so I can now select the libraries where I want to associate with FormsViewer, and in this case, we're selecting the expense report library. And for this select all checkbox, we normally check them all, and they just pertain to columns in SharePoint, columns that are clickable for opening the documents. So let's just select them all. And as you can see, the FormsViewer URL here is already populated because we configured that using the edit button. So the last part is entering the template name. So I need to enter the exact form template that I named here. So I'm going to paste it here. It has to be the exact form template name. And once the changes are applied, I'll go back to my form library. And you'll now see a FormsViewer icon on top of the header. So this icon will allow you to open blank new form in FormsViewer. Yeah. So instead of
For which one?
This
For Cerna?
FormsViewer.
Oh, she should get that email from her. Well, she might need to check with Alan, because she shouldn't got.
Just try to mute. Okay. Okay. I thought someone was asking me a question. So this button here, FormsViewer, is it will allow you to open new forms. So instead of clicking new, like the usual, you can use this FormsViewer icon here to open blank new forms. And by the way, the FormsViewer extensions config only works in the modern form library UI. And for classic view, if you're still using the classic view in SharePoint, we have a different solution for that. If you can go to our info.patdev.com, go to download sections, go to the FormsViewer folder here, installation and setup. Download this package here called FV Links, FormsViewer Links for SharePoint Classic UI. So this provides the instructions on how to configure the form library in classic mode to open in FormsViewer. So we have different solutions for modern and classic UI. So just exiting classic here. So just to show you that my documents are opening in FormsViewer because the expense report library is still new and doesn't have any documents in it. So I'm going to open an existing form library, and I open this XML. So it is opening in FormsViewer. So that's how you configure the form library to open the forms in FormsViewer. You can use the FormsViewer extensions config tool in order to have them open in FormsViewer. All right, so let me just close this. And so we did those part already in the lab. So we just tested it, and that's the end of lab 1. So let me just take a recap of what we did. So for lab 1, expense report form deployment, we provided an easy setup of form library and lists, and you can also do that for your sites if you have to deploy your libraries and SharePoint lists to another site. You can save them as list templates first and then reuse those templates to another site, and so you don't have to redo anything, right? So it's very easy to set up. So the steps we did is we installed FormsViewer. The app is already available in our tenant site. So we also added the FormsViewer extensions, and we recreated the STPs and added them as an app to the new site. And then we configured the library to open form in FormsViewer using the FB extensions config. So that is lab 1. So far, does anyone have any questions before I switch to lab 2? Okay, so I guess that's just a basic scenario for deploying a form. And lab 2 is about making your form data connections dynamic. So let's open the lab 2 folder. So you'll see that I have a dynamic DC's XTP here. So if you see that file XTP, it's a template part. A template part is also created using InfoPath, but it is saved in a different way. So this is a .xsn file, and we provide 2 forms for each lab. We have the starter form and we have the end form. We normally ask the users to start using the starter form and then follow the steps in the lab using the starter form. And then if you're successful in implementing the steps, then you can upload your own end form solution. But if you encountered any errors, we can help you fix them. Or you can also choose to just open the end form and upload that to FormsViewer, and it's already ready to show you the features for that lab. So for this lab features the Dynamic Data Connections XTP, and this XTP supports different types of data connections like submit to library, SharePoint list, mappings, library query, list query, or get user profile by name queries. And you can use this dynamic XTP to dynamically change the data connections in your form on the fly. So you can deploy your forms to any of your sites, and it will recognize the SharePoint host URL in the FormsViewer URL, and it will repoint those data connections to the right site. So let's start. So I'm going to use the starter form, open it in InfoPath design mode. So to open in InfoPath design mode, you need to right click and select design. Of course, you need to have InfoPath installed in your machine. We're actually replacing the designer. Also, we're going to have a designer feature in FormsViewer, hoping to get it out later this year. So right now we're going to use the InfoPath designer. To add the XTP, you need to click this down arrow button to click add or remove custom controls. And I've already added it, so I'm going to remove it. Click add, select template part, and browse to the dynamic DC's XTP in lab 2. Finish, close. Okay. Then I'm going to put my cursor at the very bottom of the form, and I'm going to select this custom control dynamic DCs and click that. And it automatically adds this XTP instructions. You can either follow the XTP instructions itself or the lab, so either will work. And it adds this XTP logic data source to your forms. So the logic is already here. We just need to repoint it to the QRules commands nodes. So the first step is to go to Qdabra rules data connections. So the expense report form, by the way, already has the QRules. So if you don't have QRules yet, you can upload the form to FormsViewer and inject your forms with QRules from the designer. So let me just show you that. Go to Manage Templates and click Design. So this is going to be the future forms designer. So actually I have already injected QRules. So it's supposed to have inject QRules button here, but since I already have QRules, it recognized that QRules is already in the form. So if you don't have QRules, just go to this designer and inject QRules. So going back to the designer, I'll click Finish Loading, and the Finish Loading node, by the way, is the heart of QRules. QRules is code, and every time that you open the form with QRules in it, the code behind it will run. So we need to let the QRules code to finish first before running any rules that we want to execute on load. So after the QRules run successfully, then it will run all the rules that are in here. Some people use this form load folder here for adding those form load rules. But if you have QRules, you don't have to add them to form load. Just go to Finish Loading, and it will act as a form load rule. So I'm going to click at the very top, and I will add a new action called Run Dynamic DCs. Okay. And I will add a new action to set the run unload field in the XTP logic dynamic DCs secondary data connection to go. So we're basically telling the run unload field to run its rules, and it will stop if it's not go. So after it has detected that it has that value, it will reset itself, and it will determine the SharePoint URL using the get input parameter command, and then using the key parameter called sp host URL. So if I click open form here, let me just close this. And copy the URL to Notepad, you'll see that there is a parameter here called sp host URL. So this is the site where your FormsViewer is installed. So it automatically detects that. So if you use some decoder encoder, let's see. Yeah, so that's the actual site that I'm working on. So So that's what it's doing here. It's reading that SP host URL, detecting where the Forms viewer is installed, which site is it in, and then it will put the value of the SP host URL in the SharePoint site URL field that that's also in the XTP logic, this one. And it will run some rules to change the connections. So here for the change connection, we are given the option to enable or disable which data connections we need to make dynamic. So we're going to enable submit to library, and we're going to enable get user profile by name, because the data connections that we want to make dynamic are just two: SharePoint library submit and get user profile by name. And then after enabling them, go to the submit libraries field and then edit here, add the data connection name. So we need to use the exact data connection name. SharePoint library submit. And we need to add the expense report library name. Okay, then get user profile by name. There's no need to edit it because it's using the plain name, get user profile by name as data connection. Then go to the qrules temp command and see that there's an edit label here, means that you need to edit that rule. So click on the first action and replace the stop field to point to your Qdabra rules command node. And then these are just straightforward. Let's replace it with the Qdabra rules result node. And then this one is the success node. And then the error node. Okay, and after you're done, just delete the XTP. You don't need to display that instructions in your form. And delete this extra dynamic DCs folder that the XTP added in the main data source. Then I will save this as my end form for lab 2. Okay, and then I will upload it to my new site. Click upload. Okay, so to see or to check that the data connections change dynamically, let's see. The data connections are pointing to this site, which is called FV1908, training/FV1908. And the get user profile by name is also pointing to that site. So that is the old training site. The training site that I'm using now is this one that I just created for demo, FV2004_test. So this solution version at the footer that you're seeing is a hidden debug button. It's actually a button that is seems to be showing a static text. So just click on it. And you'll see that this has the qrules execution history. And you'll see that the get input parameter ran successfully. It determined the site where it's in. And also, it successfully changed the submit URL to the correct expense report library in our site, which is FE2004_test, and also changed the connection URL for the get user profile by name. So the form is now pointing to the right site. So you can easily just inject that XTP to your forms and follow the instructions, and it'll be very easy to move your forms, for example, from dev to prod, so with less effort. So that's how we make the forms dynamic using the dynamic XTP. So let's just review and make a quick recap here for Lab 2. How to make form data connections dynamic. The process to avoid tedious migration process for updating multiple data connections. You don't have to go to the designer and update each of the data connections that you have. That is very, very tedious. You can just use the dynamic data connections XTP that we're providing you in this training, and it will save you a ton of time. Then the steps are just add and insert the XTP to your form, configure the Kuros logic, point the temp commands to the actual Qdabra commands, success, result, and error nodes, and then select which type of data connection you're going to enable, either if it's submit to library, submit to lists, or other data connections that queries to a library or lists. And the last one is get user profile by name. So that's the content of Lab 2. Do you have any questions so far? Does this make sense to you? Do you think that the solutions that I showed, do you think that you can reuse that to your forms? Let's see. Can I call Logan for comments, please?
I'll speak up. This is Donald.
Okay.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I'm following it, and I'm pretty sure, like most people, we're familiar with some of the steps that you were doing. If you have any exposure to InfoPath or FormsViewer at all, I mean, to be able to do it on ourselves, no, but you know, we have your instructions, and so I think probably most of the learning, for me anyway, is going to come afterwards when I try to, you know, peck my way through the instructions that were provided. But I follow what's going on, at least in theory.
Okay, good to know that. So yeah, we've designed the labs for them to be um, so you can easily follow them. We added screenshots for you to for it to be easy easy for all of you to redo this in your own site. So so if there are no other questions, we'll take a quick break. So we'll be back in 10 minutes. Say 10 minutes. Okay. So I'll just be here and we'll be back after 10 minutes. Thanks. So welcome back to FormsViewer Training Day 1. I hope you're still there and following. So the next lab parts are Lab 3 and Lab 4, and Kirby will be demoing these labs. Kirby, are you ready to demo?
Yes.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm going to share my screen now. I guess you have to make me the presenter.
Okay.
Okay, so let me know if you can now see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Great. So the first demo is about how to query user profiles in SharePoint. So some of you may have already used the username function in InfoPath. This usually returns the username of the logged in user in the form. But what if you want to retrieve other profile information of the current user, such as the first name, last name, or department, or the email address of the current user's manager, so that you can use that email to send a notification when requesting approval? So this can be achieved with the use of SharePoint's Get User Profile by Name web service. So this web service provides all the user information that was imported into the user's SharePoint profile. So it's important that the information is kept up to date in the Active Directory. So to add this functionality to the form, you need to add a SOAP data connection and choose the Get User Profile by Name operation. But setting this up requires a few steps for it to work in your form. So good news is that QRules provides an easy way to add this functionality to your form, and it's by using the Get User Profile by Name command. So here's the end form of Lab 3. So I'm going to open the form. So as you can see, the employee name and the manager name, which is Patrick, are retrieved on form load. So that's because we used the Get User Profile by Name command. And in here, we're not displaying the email addresses that are retrieved, but if you go to the debug section, I added these fields that store the email addresses of the current user and manager. And you'll see here that the email addresses are successfully retrieved. So now that we've seen how the command works, let's go ahead and implement it in the expense report form. So let's go to the lab package and let's open the starter form. And first, let's verify that we already have the Get User Profile by Name SOAP data connection. So to do that, let's go to data. Wait, sorry. I can't unpin the this one in Zoom. So okay. So go to the data tab and go to data connections. So as you can see here, the Get User Profile by Name exists, and we're using the operation Get User Profile by Name. And we're already executing the Get User Profile by Name command on form load, and this is already set in the dynamic data connection XTP that we have implemented earlier. So it is being set in the XTP logic secondary data source. So if you go to actions, connections, and then the get user profile by name, you're going to see here that there's this data connection name node. And if you go to this rule, first rule, you're going to see that it is specifying the get user profile by name command here. So here we're using the source site users, or the source parameter with the site users as the value. I'm not going into detail as to why this is necessary, but for now, please use this parameter value as the default whenever you're using this command. So next, I'm going to show you the fields in the main data source in which we'll store the employee and manager information. So here we have the resource folder and employee. We have here the employee name, email address, as well as the manager name, manager email address. And in this form, we also have a secondary or second level approval, which is for the accounting manager. So it's also in here, AP name and AP email. So next, let's see how the current user information are being set. So in the finished loading node, in the Qdabra rules, secondary data source, we have here the set current user rule. And this sets the set current user node here to go. So it triggers that node and it runs all the rules under that node. So let's go to that node now. So here in the set current user, we have this rule that sets the current username, which is under that same node. We're also setting the display name and the email. So the way that we're setting it is we're getting the value from the get user profile by name data source. So after that, we're adding a filter where the name, which is under the property data, also under the get user profile by name data source, where name is equal to account name. And for the display name, we're using the name equals preferred name. So you might ask, how can you determine the values to compare with the name field in the get user profile? So the name refers to the user profile property in SharePoint. So to know all the properties available by default, you can drag the get user profile by name repeating table in your form, preferably in the debug view. So to do that, just go to the get user profile by name secondary data source and select the debug view here in your form and just navigate to the repeating table, the property data, and right click and select repeating table. So that's how you add the repeating data of the get user profile by name. So I've already done that. So let's go to the debug section of our form. And as you can see here, so here's the repeating table of the get user profile by name web service. So we have the account name, created property, email, first name, last name, and so on. We also have the work email, username, preferred name. So all of these are the default user properties that we can query. So now we're going to do the same thing to retrieve the manager's user information. So we've already added a node specifically for setting the manager's information, and that is under the form logic secondary data source. And here we have the set managers info node. So we're setting the stop if blank and reset self rules. And let's add a new rule here called the get manager profile. And we're gonna set the manager account name here with the value from the get user profile by name, and add a filter there where name is equal to manager. So we're basically getting the account name of the manager of the current user. So let's click OK. And then we're going to use the get user profile by name command. So here we're setting the command field of Qdabra rules. And to build the get user profile by name command, we can actually use FormsViewer designer. So here, you just go to your FormsViewer template page and click design. And you're going to see here that there's a command builder, and you can search for a specific command. So let's search for the get user profile by name, and let's add the user here. So the value for this one is from the form logic that we just set, which is the manager account name. And then for the source, let's use a site users list again, or the site users, and copy that to clipboard and go back to the designer, InfoPath designer, and click the function button here and paste the command and just verify the formula. And as you can see, we have here our command, the get user profile by name, and we're setting the manager account name as the value for the user parameter. So let's click OK. And then the next action that we're going, or the rule that we're going to add, is setting the manager details. So let's set the manager details. So let's go to the main data source and select the field for the manager. So for the manager name, we're gonna set the, since we've already queried, again, the get user profile by name by using the command, it's going to show us the user profile of the manager. So value where the name is equal to preferred name. And then we're also going to set the manager's email address. With the user property email. Okay. And then we also need to make sure that this just runs if the manager name is blank. So since we also have the accounting manager, let's just do the same thing and just add the same information. Just copy that rule and paste it here. So set AP manager. So just make sure that we change the fields here, and AP name.
When you're asking for the preferred name, you've asked for the preferred name 3 times now. One for the user, one for the manager, one for the AP manager. So how does it know the difference?
So in here, remember that we set the manager account name attribute field here with the value of the manager of the current user, right? So that manager account field, a manager account name field, we're trying to add that here in the get user profile by name. So which means that we're actually getting the user profile of the manager. So this will run the command, and it will query again the get user profile by name web service, and it will then give us the result of the manager's user profile.
Okay, now I was kind of wait until after the end, but all of this is based on the user profile of the actual user. You've got the user,
Yeah.
you got the manager, the AP manager. In a lot of my forms, I have different sets of people, such as someone who's not related to the user in the gal or
Yeah.
okay, so let's say I'll have a person, and then I'll have who's an alternate approver, and then I'll pick that person, and so then I'm going to need the details of that other person. So I really need to get the user profile by name for completely different people in the database.
Yeah. So you just need to, let's say, you just need to add the user name of that person here. So let's say Kirby Laborte, and make sure that this is the username that she or he has in the SharePoint profile. So that's just how easy it is to query the user profile of that user.
But I want the person to pick from, let's say, a drop down, or from a people picker, who that extra, who you would be, because it may be Bob or somebody else. It's a variable that they will provide. It'll work the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, it will still. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You can add any user in the user parameter as long as it exists in the SharePoint profile. So if you have the valid users in your dropdown, then you can use the get user profile to get the details of that specific user. Is that clear? I'm not sure if I'm being clear. Did I answer your question there?
Well, I mean, basically, you've told me that it's possible, but I'll have to spend some time figuring out how to actually make it work. But that's all I need for right now.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you for that question. So yes.
Kurt, I'm sorry to interrupt, but following up on that question, the AP manager, where is that information coming from? Because I mean, the profile, from my understanding is the user profile, there is a manager's field that would be their actual manager. But then when you start talking about the AP manager, how are you getting that from a profile?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now we don't have a specific accounting manager field in the SharePoint user profile. So what you can do is if an organization has you can add a custom field. I guess I haven't tried that, but you can add a custom field in your user profile in SharePoint. I guess it's in central administration. So you can add that for that user. So so if you use that specific property, then you can query it using this command. But right now, since we don't have that field in our SharePoint, then we're just copying the same value from the manager. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
It would work the way that I spoke of is by having a separate get user profile by name and a separate user that the form filler outer would be able to select. They'd select a user and they would also select the AP manager in two separate get user profile by names.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So, thank you for those questions. So that's just how you use the get user profile by name. It looks like this is really a helpful command for some of you. So yeah, so that's just for the demo for the lab 3, and I guess we can now proceed with lab 4 if you don't have any other questions. All right, so moving on, the next lab is all about validation rules in FormsViewer. So adding field validation rules is important because it prevents a user from submitting a form if any of the required fields is left blank. So in InfoPath, a required control may be displayed as a standard error alert, which consists of a red asterisk or dashed red border and a screen tip with that reads cannot be blank, or as a custom error message which displays in a dialog box. But FormsViewer provides a different and much better way of displaying validation for required fields. And that's by using the get errors and get error count commands. So now I'm going to show you how the validation looks like in FormsViewer. So I'm going to open the end form here for lab 4. This is also included in the package that we've sent you earlier. So in this form, in the expense report form, we have 4 required fields: the business purpose, category, date, and amount. So if we leave these fields blank and hit submit, you're going to see here that the form has found 4 errors, and it displayed all of the required fields in here with an additional message for each required field. And as you can see, the fields are also highlighted. So, and if you fill out some of the required fields, it will then remove those in here and just retain the existing validation errors. So I'm going to show you how to add that to the expense report form. So in the lab 4 folder, you're going to see there that there's a validation XTP or template part. And if you open the starter form, okay, let's just close this one first. Okay, so here's the starter form. And let's first add the, okay, I've already added that, so let's remove that for now. So I'm going to show you how to add that validation XTP. So here, let's select the template part and click Browse. Go to the folder and select the XTP, validation XTP. All right, so let's add the XTP on top of the, here, on top of the form, and just put the cursor here and select validation. So as you can see here, there's the field here that is pointing to the message attribute field, and another one that is pointing to the error message. So the validation XTP added a bunch of fields in your main data source. So here we have the temp command, the temp result for temporary fields for the Qdabra rules, and the validation. In the validation folder, we have the get errors, get error count, clear errors, and we also have this error message. And then next is we're going to remove this and put it outside of the section. Okay. And let's just remove this section for now because we don't need that. And as you can see, the section also has this formatting rule. It hides when the message is blank, and same for the error message. It's hidden if the error message is blank. So next is, let's add a validation to the required fields. So first is a business purpose. Let's click new and click validation. So let's add validation here. So let's add a condition. If the purpose is blank, then it will show this screen tip. Please enter a business purpose. And next is we're going to add a formatting rule that will highlight that field if the form detects that it is blank. So if the purpose is blank, so add a condition if the purpose is blank, and if the error message, which is under the validation XTP folder, contains the screen tip that we just added earlier for the same field. So please enter a business purpose and click OK. And then we'll add formatting here for the field for the control. So let's just use a red text and yellow color for the text field, or we can actually make this lighter. All right. So once you're done with adding the validation and the highlight, you can just copy those, copy all rules, and paste that to the rest of the required fields, such as their category, date, and the amount. So once that's pasted, just make sure that it's pointing to the correct field. And then the message here, please enter category. And for the highlight, just change the field and make sure that this is correct as well. Category. And once all of the required fields already have the validation and the highlight rules, we can now proceed with editing the Q-rules command, the usage of the Qdabra rules commands. So here in the get errors node, we have the get errors command, which is setting the temp command. And we need to replace this to point to the correct command of Qdabra rules. Okay, and also for the error message, we also need to change this temp result and point it to the actual result of the Qdabra rules. And also in the get error count, the get error count, the result of the get error count is being saved in the error count field. So let's also put the result field or result node here. And then the clear errors, the third one, change that to point to the command, and also add the temp result, the result node here. So that's all done. And let's go to the submit button to run the validation. So before submit, we'll add a rule called run validation that will run the get error count. Oops. Let's go to the main data source and select the get error count and give that a value go so that it will run the rules under that. So if you go to the get error count, it's basically getting the count of the errors, and then the next rule runs the get errors node here if the number of errors is not equal to 0, meaning there are existing validation errors in the form. So it will go ahead and run this get errors. So going back to the submit button, let's add a field here or a rule here that will stop if required fields are blank. So if let's add a condition that if the error count is not equal to 0, then it will not run the remaining rules in this area, meaning it won't submit the changes in the form. So let's just set the stop node here as blank, because if we don't do that, then InfoPath will just remove this automatically if it detected that there's no actions in here. So after that, we're going to clear the errors once the submit is performed. So go to the form logic and just go to the submit node. And after the reset self, just add a clear errors rule and set in the main data source, set the clear errors to go, and this will run the rules under that node, and it will reset the errors. And yeah, that's it for implementing the validation feature in FormsViewer. So do you have any questions for the lab? All right, so I guess everything's clear.
Great job on your demo, Kirby.
Thank you.
So do you want me to go back to the slide so you can summarize the lab 3 and lab 4?
Yep.
Okay.
Joanne, are you now sharing your screen?
No, let's see. I think we can see your desktop.
Mm,
Let's see.
I can't see how to cancel. I stop sharing.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's see. Okay. Can you see this slide now?
Yep.
Okay.
So just to summarize what we did, we retrieve the user profile data from SharePoint using the get user profile by name, specifically for the employee and manager name and email addresses. So for the steps, we used the get user profile by name command, and we set the fields in the main data source for the queried data, and we added a trigger. I guess we didn't do this, did we? I forgot to demo this part, to add a trigger to the finished loading node to execute um, the setting the manager's info. So for next one for lab 4, for the data validations, we've showed you how we specify the validation messages. We also highlighted the fields, and we used the get error count command to show the number of errors existing in the form. And for the steps, we already have the XTP in the lab that you can just insert or import in your own form with all of those all commands. And we've also configured the Kuros logic to point to the actual command and result nodes of the Qdabra rules. And last is we've added some rules, the validation and formatting rules for the required fields. All right, so just to summarize what we did for day 1, so Joanne demoed the deployment of the expense report form in the SharePoint site and added those STPs. And she also demoed the dynamic DCS XTP, which is a way to save time if you want to move your form to another site, let's say, for example, from development to production. And the last 2 labs for the get user profile by name command to get the user information from SharePoint. And last but not least, the adding the data validations and highlighting the required fields. So that's it for day 1.
Okay, thanks, Curvy. Wonderful demo. So I hope that these features and techniques that we showed you for day 1 will add value to your forms. So before we end the class, we normally ask each one of the participants of the things that that you learned in the class or the key takeaways. So let's just go around the table again, and would appreciate if you can share any comments that you have. So let's start with, I still don't know who 18479136612 is. Unfortunately, the participant doesn't have any audio. So I'll start with Caroline. Caroline, are you still there?
I am here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was a good refresher for me. I've seen a lot of that stuff before. The XTPs, I think, are new. Not sure that I've seen the validation and all and the other XTP, so that'll be very helpful.
Thank you. And then next is Kathy.
Well, I saw a lot of the things that Hillary has put into some of my forms, and it looks like there's some nice reusable pieces that I could place in the forms myself, and maybe keep my InfoPath forms going a little longer. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Glad to hear that you can reuse this to your forms. And then Donald.
Yep. Basically, I've just been giving my comments all along. It's stuff that I need to eventually get to, but just it's a good thing to know that they're available once I get around to it.
Thanks, and thanks for your questions earlier on the labs that Kirby demoed. Then let's see, Emma, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here. In particular, I know my team is going to be very, very interested right off the bat with just dynamically switching the data connections. We're very interested in allowing some users to make changes to forms as they see fit in test. So kind of allowing us to have a very easy promote from test to production setup. I know that everybody's going to be thrilled when I come out and let them know that we have that option.
Good to know that this could be an interesting feature that you can add to your forms. Yeah, so the dynamic XTP is available in the lab, and you can try it on your form.
Yeah, I'll be sharing it with other members of my team. Unfortunately, I was the only one available to take it right now, but I've sent out the first and second lab to everyone just to get a feel for how they like it, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments back about those data connections.
Great to hear that. Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
And last is Logan. Not sure if he's still there. Logan? No, so I guess maybe he can view the video that we'll be uploading later if it's not available to watch the demos now. So thank you so much for sharing those thoughts and comments for day one of FormsViewer training. I hope that we can add more value to your forms. We have some really interesting features to demo for day 2 and day 3 and day 4. There's lots of stuff there like the Authy XTP, the task pane XTP that we just demoed in the webinar last week is also very interesting. We're also demoing this technique that we add in our forms. We use CSS styling to beautify our forms, and most of our clients have already used them. So if you have your own clients or customers, maybe you can reuse that styling and the load resource command to impress your own customers. Yeah, so thank you, and hope you can still join us for the rest of the training. We'll still be around for at least half an hour. So if you have time to run the labs now, you can do that. Otherwise, please feel free to leave if you need to. It's also getting late here in the Philippines, but you can still be in Zoom for at least half an hour. And if you have any questions, we'll be available to assist you. So Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
When did you say that the, that InfoPath is not going to be supported any longer?
Is it Kathy? Sorry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So 2020 or something like that?
2026, Microsoft will no longer support InfoPath. So we still have at least 4 years. So they said that they will stop support of InfoPath.
And that's when we transition over to FormsViewer to be able to continue to use our forms without rebuilding them in Power Apps, I suppose, is what Microsoft is moving towards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we're also replacing InfoPath Designer, and FormsViewer is going to have its own designer in the browser, and hopefully we're going to release that this year. And about Power Apps, we're also certified Power Apps developer. We have Hilary Stupa. I know you've worked with her before, and he's a certified Power Apps developer, and we've developed Power Apps forms for our clients as well.
So between Power Apps and FormsViewer, do they basically do close to the same thing? Does FormsViewer has more tools that you guys have built in to help us get going, and Power Apps is maybe not that user friendly, or what's the difference between choosing one to use?
To be honest, I don't have any expertise with Power Apps, but if you have any Power Apps questions, we can direct you to Hillary. But I think that we built simple Power Apps forms for our clients before, and that comparing the two between the two InfoPath and Power Apps, I believe that you can do a lot of complex functionalities in InfoPath and now FormsViewer. We can integrate FormsViewer forms to SQL now using our web service, which is DBXL. I'm not sure if you have that.
We do.
Installed. So there's a lot you can do with FormsViewer. I just don't have the the comparison right now, but if you, like I said, if you have particular questions about Power Apps, you can ask Hilary Stupa. He's our expert on Power Apps.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm just fine with FormsViewer. I was just wondering. Thank you so much for all your help today, and I will try to get caught up on downloading all that for the class tomorrow so I can follow along.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. Have a great day.